Hi, I'm Nadia.
I'm Aaleia.
And I'm Nameera.
And this is Operation Tomatometer. Now, I know everyone is ready to dive into another Tomatastic show, but this is just a reminder to stop, drop, and rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts.
That's right. So all you have to do is open Apple Podcasts, search for the classics Operation Tomatometer, scroll down to the bottom, and rate us 5 stars. We already have 50 reviews, which means we're already a quarter of the way there to getting certified on Rotten Tomatoes. It's so simple. Everything is going to be linked in the YouTube description, so what are you waiting for? Go rate us, please.
Thank you. Thank you. So, welcome back to today's episode of your favorite film podcast. And in case you haven't seen last week's episode,
which you should totally go watch right now,
we mentioned getting an exclusive pre-release to Illumination's newest movie. And our very own Nadia and Aaleia here got to go see it. And they blogged the entire experience, so make sure to see that video when it comes out.
Yeah, it was such a blast. I can't wait to share my thoughts on the film. Overall, it was such a surreal and exciting experience for the both of us. Yeah.
So, if you haven't been living in Retro City, the entertainment capital of the world, then you would know Illumination's newest film, Sing 2.
So first, a little recap of Sing 1. So it starts with Buster Moon, a koala whose theater is going out of business, and to revitalize it, he puts on a talent show and gathers all people from across the town and puts out a grand prize of $100,000, which he doesn't have. And in doing so, we meet a bunch of lovable characters. We have Rosita, a mama pig full of talent and desperate to get away from her 25 piglets. We have Ash, a punk hedgehog bounded by her boyfriend, soon-to-be ex. Johnny, a gorilla hiding away his talent from his gang member father. And Mina, a shy elephant full of raw vocal talent. When chaos ensues, Moon finds out who is really there for him and behind his big dreams. The group works together to put on their own acts and perform to save Moon's theater, which they successfully do.
So today we will, of course, be reviewing the sequel. So Sing 2 is the continued story of these rather eccentric animal characters. So Buster, persistent as always, tries to put on yet another extravagant performance, but the main conflict arises when he tries to convince one of Red Shore City's most famous superstars, Clay Calloway, to perform in his show. And as the story progresses, each performer begins to face their own problems, and the show becomes rather a wild ride.
So now, before we get into our Rotten or Not segment, disclaimer, I was not able to make the screening. That's okay, I'm here today to represent Sing 1 and see what Sing 2 has in store, in comparison to that.
So, as our recurring viewers know, Rotten or Not is where we put our heads together to try to predict the score that the tomato heads at Rotten Tomatoes have given to Sing 2.
And today we also have a little Sing Pride. We will also be guessing if the sequel's Rotten Tomatoes score is higher or lower than the original.
Then we'll talk about if both ratings are ripe or pretty rotten.
Now, the original score for the first Sing, which was released almost 5 years ago,
Nameera, just say it.
was a whopping 71%. So there you go. Critics did seem to enjoy some parts of Sing.
That's very interesting. Because I actually was going to say, if we can go now into my guesses for Sing 2, I was going to say that Sing 2 in my mind was a 71, like almost exactly. So now that you're saying the first one was a 71, I'm going to go lower for Sing 2 and say it was, I would say a 62. I definitely don't think Sing 2 was as good as Sing 1. It was still very enjoyable, but I think definitely I had some quabbles with it. I don't know if it was as good.
I agree with you that it probably wasn't as good as the original, and most sequels aren't. But, I don't know, I feel like it wasn't deserving of a 62, and I feel like critics might have realized that. So, I'm going to say a 70. So, 1 point lower than what Sing 1 got.
Alrighty.
I agree with that, honestly. I feel like, judging by the premise of Sing 1 had a lot going on there. But the fact that it got a 71 in the first place, I feel like we can only go a little bit lower from there because, sequels, as all, like said, they're not as good as the originals. So I'm going to give it, mid-60s, almost a 70.
So now will our very lovely producer and overlord please hand us the score?
What?
Oh, wow, okay.
So that's 68, so closer to you, Aaleia. But I wasn't too far off, actually. So a win for Nadia today, because I've been really off in the past. So 68. I can agree with that. It's not a 62, obviously, but I think I just agree with the general idea that it's lower than the first one. It was a good fun film to watch, but yeah, I wouldn't say it was on par with the first one. I think my main thing with it was that it just felt kind of like you took the first plot and you kind of just jumbled it up a little bit and then you just spewed it back out again. It kind of just felt a little repetitive to me. It was another show being put on. Again, they're at Jeopardy. You know, I just thought the whole concept was a little reused.
Well, I guess I agree with it. I was actually expecting originally for it to be higher, but I mean, the whole theme of it was interesting. I mean, the message was maybe a little unclear, and I think we can talk about that later. But 68 sounds about right, I think.
Yeah.
I like what they did with the Nowhere to Go But Up, which they said in the
Yeah,
original
that's always
film,
a cute sentiment.
and then they recalled that. But also the entire film was about Nowhere to Go But Up. It was about space. The entire show that they put on was out of this world, and it was about space, and it was about flying. And whether that was intentional or not, I really liked that, and I liked how they played with that theme. So while it might not have been as good as the original one, I think that it had its merits.
It did have its merits.
Question. Do we have an overarching theme song of any type? You know, like in the first thing we had Golden Slumbers. Is there anything going on here?
Overarching theme song. I'll be honest, I love Sing. The first one was great, but I have to say that even with the first and the second, there's no, like, the music is kind of mainstream. There are song choices, which makes sense. It's a talent show. But just even, like, backing tracks, it's not often orchestral music. It's often mainstream songs, so...
I mean, I actually liked the mainstream music a little more than I thought I would. From the trailer, I was expecting the songs to be very popular songs, but it was also a lot of older songs from, like, the early 2010s.
Yeah, and I mean, I do say mainstream, but they did incorporate U2, so I can't complain in that regard. I mean, the U2, I know last week in the trailer I was very excited about Bono. I know my mom loves him, so...
So what did we think about the animation?
They very colorful, like the coloring throughout the entire film was very bright, vibrant. It definitely gave off that vibe of opportunity and wonder as they go into Red Shore City. And yeah, what did you think?
One thing that I noticed from the very beginning was how good, well, I guess their illumination, so it has to be very good with lighting. And that's something that I've seen with most illumination films, is that they do very well with, like, playing with light and everything. Also reflections, like reflections in eyeballs even.
That's true.
The attention to detail. I was very interested in just, like, seeing all those little things that they included into everything. So
yeah, it was very gorgeous, and especially with, like, you mentioned the out of this world theme, the entire, like, galactic theme. It lent itself to all this usage of light and such, so it was very beautiful to watch. And another interesting thing we mentioned was the kind of incorporation of a stop motion aspect at some point.
Right, so I think it was when they were building the sets.
Yes.
I think there was like 5 seconds of just stop motion of them building something, and it was in the middle of another montage that wasn't stop motion, and it felt kind of out of place.
Like kind of time-lapsey was their effect? Was that what they were going for?
Yeah, and I know that while we were watching it, it felt a little strange because it was interesting to see stop motion in an animation. And I noticed that you were writing it down in your notes.
Yeah, we were both writing the notes, which I can barely read. You know, chicken scratch.
Wow.
But yes, don't look at it. Don't look at it. But yeah, I was writing it down too. I noticed that. And did it feel like out of place maybe because we saw it in that one instance and then...
It was out of place, but it was interesting.
I mean, it looked good.
I have nothing bad to say about it.
Yeah, it did look good.
And it was
good.
only a few seconds, and I think some people might have had their eyes closed for a moment and might have missed it completely.
While I was watching Sing 2, they did, like you mentioned, it was kind of, like the first one kind of... I think the span or duration of the show might have been so it didn't feel as like montagey at points. But for Sing 2, they did have a lot of montages, which some did look really beautiful. But I had thought when I was watching Sing 2 that a lot was going on. I mean, granted, the cast is so large and there's so many characters, but at points I just felt like I was going from one thing to the next and next and next. Kind of, did it feel a little fast-paced to you, or...?
I was actually, like, checking my watch, and I was just thinking, I don't really want this to be over so quickly, because it did feel like it was going quickly, but then by the end, when it was about the 2-hour mark, because it was like an hour and 50 minutes, it felt like it was a good length for the movie, and maybe at the end it was a little fast-paced, but I like the ending.
The ending was my favorite part.
But maybe we should go back to the beginning.
Let's save the ending for the end.
I have a
So,
quick question
yes.
here.
Yes.
So, who are the new characters? Are we talking like back to Sing 1? Are they all contestants? Or is there possibly like a new judge? Anything like that? Anything that
Well,
we
the
need to
new
know?
characters are a little...
it's not a competition, so the new characters are just people in Red Shore City,
Yeah.
and
it's just like the higher up executive, like the CEO, Crystal,
yeah.
the wolf, and then his daughter, Portia,
Mhm.
who's a little bit snobby at first, but then gradually throughout the film, she learns, she develops, and she learns, she gets like humbled, and so you definitely grow to like her. And who else? We have Suki, the redhead Bob.
Yeah.
Yes, her. That's a new
Who
character.
we learn to like in the end.
Yes, she
I
also
guess.
helps our characters at the end.
She learns that small town people can make
Yeah.
it big, or can at least, have.
Yeah, because she was an
Future.
employee of Crystal and she was kind of just condescending at the beginning. But Crystal, he was a character, let's just say. Do we want to talk about his plot? You want to go more into depth about what goes on with him?
There's a lot that goes on with him because
There's a lot.
Well, one interesting scene that I think shows his character very well, and our interpretation of his character, is when he's going on a talk show, more towards the end. And this is after we've seen this side of him that's very dark and very
dark.
violent, because at one point he goes from being so happy and pleased with Buster Moon, and then he goes to throwing him off a balcony. So the talk show kind of shows that celebrities and people who we look up to, they can be two-faced. They can have one side of them that we see on camera, and he very easily and very quickly changes his expressions, his tone, and then he goes back behind the stage, and he's that scary wolf that we see in the rest of it.
It was actually... I wrote that down in my notes. I wrote that I was actually scared. The close-ups they did in those moments of his rage were genuinely frightening to me. Like, the close-ups, because his eyes were completely wide and he was staring Buster Moon down.
We're not even kids.
And, yeah, we're not even kids. I'm like, imagine the little kids watching this around me. But overall, like you mentioned, when he he attempted to throw him off the building, I was a little taken off guard because I was expecting, like I said earlier, the colors, it's very vibrant, exciting, this film. And then there was a murder side plot to it. It was very dark. And then after Buster Moon escapes, Crystal tries to pursue him and kill him. It was very dark and I wasn't expecting it.
And his bodyguards, they turned from just being, I guess, in the background of places to them calling them thugs, and I was like, is this another gang thing like we had with the first movie and his father?
With Johnny's dad.
Johnny's dad, yeah.
Speaking of which, what happened to Johnny's dad? Is he out of jail?
We see him at the
I
end.
love
I love that side
brothers.
plot. It's so cute. Johnny's dad does make a reappearance at the end, yes, and it's really sweet again. Johnny's dad helps
buddies.
them, and he vows to be his bodyguard, and they go fighting Crystal's thugs or whatever.
Keep them out of the theater. I love that.
So, how did Johnny get back to the jail? Because Sing 1, he was like, oh, I better go back before they notice I'm gone. Like, it is insane.
Johnny's dad, he just somehow he's back in
They
jail.
were on parole, I think, and they were
they're doing community service. That's right.
Right. And what about Mina? Anything new? I've heard a little something about her.
Yes, a little love in the air.
Well, in the beginning, we see that they're trying to put on a show at their theater, and they're trying to get critics to see them to make it big. And that's when we have that big opening scene with Alice in Wonderland, which I also like that theme because we're sort of going down the rabbit hole with them into the film, which I liked.
That's true. It was definitely a very interesting opening sequence, I would say.
Yeah, because at first I didn't realize it was Alice in Wonderland until I saw the caterpillar, and then I realized,
And I mean, at first we didn't even realize that this was happening on a stage. The way the first shot is, it feels like Mina's actually running through a forest, and I was like, whoa, what's going on here? But then we get a shot of the audience, and we know, which was very interesting. But go on with Mina's story.
And then they, who convinces them to go to Red Shore City? Was it?
I think it was Buster Moon. He wanted to do this. He wanted to do the auditions for Crystal.
Who stopped the bus?
Rosita
stopped the bus from leaving and told them that
they should all take this opportunity and
they
go.
should take the opportunity, take advantage of it, and go to Red Shore City. And so they go, and Mina's with them. And when she gets there, she meets a guy who makes his own ice cream and has a truck.
Yeah.
And her whole thing is that she had a part in the
show, the
where
Grand
she
Outer
was-
Space show.
She was like a queen, or she
She
wasn't a
was-
queen, but she was dressed like a queen, and she had to have like a romance scene with the guy.
With this, I think played by Eric
Darius?
Andre.
I think his name was Darius.
Darius, but he was very condescending and
Arrogant.
narcissistic into himself, and it was very hard for Mina to act like she was in love with him until
she meets a guy, which she ends up imagining Darius as the guy, the nice elephant with the ice cream.
Yeah.
And she sort of falls in love with him after like 5 minutes. And maybe it was a little strange because it was sort of like, why does she need a man? Why does she need love to have confidence?
Exactly.
But it was sweet. And
it was a sweet side plot, but I mean that's all it was for Mina. That was her side plot.
Was it good character development though?
What? I don't know. Like, if we see where Mina was at the end of the first film, like, taking her big stage and her grand, like, performance, I kind of prefer the ending of Sing 1 for Mina as opposed to Sing 2, but, I mean, it makes sense that the main focus was in Mina again in the second film, so I can't really say much about it.
Yeah, so I just have a quick question now. Like, what were the musical sequences? Like, what songs are we looking at here? Because you guys mentioned, early 2000s,
Yes.
early 2010s, and, just want to see what's going on there.
Okay, I know earlier I said that the songs were mainstream, but albeit they were good performances. The actors can sing. I mean, Johnny can sing. As you can tell, I love Johnny. He was great. Scarlett Johansson was great. Tori Kelly plays Mina. She was beautiful. They're all beautiful singers, so the performances are really enjoyable. What about you, Aaleia?
Well, the first performance after the Alice in Wonderland one, I don't really remember. I don't think I knew what song that was. But the first scene that spoke to me was when Bad Guy started playing. And it was, I don't know if it was a remix or if it was just like really good audio quality in the theater, but it sounded really good as it started playing. They were going up the elevator to...
They were kind of trying to
Mr.
sneak
Crystal?
to sneak into the auditions. They dressed up as employees and janitors.
So we see them going up the elevator, and it was an interesting song choice because it didn't necessarily fit with it, and it wouldn't have been something that people would have thought while making the film that would have fit the scene. And I liked that they didn't make the song choices so obvious. But I really liked it when they were sneaking in, and it was just like a very slow-paced scene when they were just trying to avoid getting caught, and I like the tension there.
Oh, I do have to say, it's kind of off topic, but after that scene, it was like a stationary shot of the room that they enter in off the elevator, and they're all mopping, and everyone's just quietly watching every single member of our cast mop across the floor.
And the squeaking.
The squeaking, the silence, it was a
sound
great
effects
shot.
were really good in the film.
It
Did you
was,
notice that?
and the comedic timing was very funny. I did laugh out loud at a few parts.
Mhm.
So would you guys say the music choices in Sing 1 is better, or the music choices in Sing 2?
It's hard because I feel like they're just kind of on the same level. Both utilize popular songs or just songs that we're familiar with. But I mean, in both cases, the performances were great. So I mean, be it as though they were although they were mainstream, I still enjoyed hearing them. So I can't really complain about the performance.
Also, was there any sort of foreign representation? Like, I remember in Sing 1 we had that little group of J-pop, little cats or something. And is there anything like that in Sing 2?
I can't remember now.
I don't think so.
I don't remember anything. If anything, it was very minor because I can't. Nothing pops out to me. I mean, you mentioned the bad guy scene, but there was another scene which, I mean, I keep talking about how it utilizes popular songs, but there was that scene that both stuck out to us where they used ballet music. So that was ballet instrumental during Johnny's dance practice scene.
Right.
And that was very
Metronome.
Yes,
that was
metronome.
The first thing. I loved it. It was a close up of a metronome and the sound with the music, and I can't really describe it, but I really liked what they did with that. And he was struggling the whole time.
Yeah.
And it was kind of sad watching him struggle.
It heightened definitely the pressure that Johnny was feeling because he was struggling with his dancing, and it kept cross-cutting to metronome, and then each time the metronome was getting closer and faster, and it was just heightening Johnny's stress, and then you could see him shaking, and then all while this is going on, the ballet music is just increasing, and then it reaches that point of highest level of stress possible. So it was really I thought that was one of the better scenes that really got to me emotion wise. But yeah, moments like that, and that's why I feel like you mentioned how Bad Guy was a good song to pick for that, but there are moments where I wish they picked maybe music similar to the ballet kind of music. I feel like instrumental just really works.
So I'm hearing that there are a lot of changes. So what about the central message, you know? Like, you know, Sing 1 was really based on community and finding that within what Mr. Moon was trying to do here. Is there anything similar or different about the theme, if there is one, for Sing 2?
Well, if the theme, we can talk about the out of this world and the flying and this outer space situation. I guess we'd first have to talk about the final performance, because that's really what tied everything together. That was the climax, with all the characters and everything was brought to a close. So what did we think about the final performance and maybe how that contributed to the message as a whole, rather than just looking at the beginning part mostly?
Yeah, I think definitely the last performance with Calloway and bringing him out of his shell after experiencing loss was very touching, and just seeing him find the joy in life again after losing his wife. I think that was that's why I think his side plot was the best one. I think that was a very emotional side plot and theme and message to that. But I do think that in the sense of community, that theme, I think that was also reiterated again. And even you mentioned earlier only one way to go is up. That was mentioned again, and that's why I feel like it was slightly repetitive and reminiscent of the first one, because that was a theme of like persevering and like, you know, like only one way to go is up after you're struggling, and I kind of just felt that again slightly. But overall, I thought the theme was, you know, it's never gonna get old, that theme. You can always use it to motivate you.
Yeah, I think it's really cool considering that this is a movie with a bunch of different characters of animals, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like there's so much like there with diversity, and there's no two animals alike. And you know what Mr. Moon says, all animals great and small, kind of like bringing everyone together in that type of sense. So last thing, a little personal thing I gotta ask here: what happened to Johnny's character at the end?
So we do see some closure with him in the very end of his character development with the dance battle, which is a callback to the ballet sequence that we were talking about, where he was unable to perform some of the moves, and at one point he had to like stand at the very edge of a stick. And then in the dance battle, he was able to do everything and more because of his breakdancing dance coach.
Who actually came on and battled him like one-on-one.
Right, but before that he was also battling the choreographer for the dancing, who was like Red Shore City's famous choreographer, which is I think maybe a little predictable that we knew that. Was it predictable for you that you knew that he was going to battle him personally?
But I mean, in the end, they still gave us a great sequence, so I mean, I can't complain either. I just can't wait for that the soundtrack to come out, which kind of sucks that we saw a pre-screening of it, because now it's still not out. But I'll wait. It's whatever.
So yeah, we did get some closure with his character. Yeah. Realizing that he had the confidence and the ability to do anything as long as he practiced, and especially having his dad there and everything.
Yeah, definitely one of my favorite numbers.
Yeah, so, you know, we moved from Mr. Moon's theater to a much larger screen. Was there any end credits here?
No end credits, but there was an ending scene that, like, kind of just shows the rest of their future, like, the rest of their near future and what they're doing in regards to their theater. Now they have the Majestic Theater where they're putting on their outer space show, and yeah.
So we did stay to see if there were end credit scenes, but I actually didn't want there to be any because I liked the ending and I liked how open it was for their future and everything. And I would be very happy if this was the last one in the. It
better be. If there's
no,
we talked about this last time. If they keep doing sequels, I'm gonna be mad. But this was a good ending.
Yeah, because if they went from there's nowhere to go but up to them actually being up in, you know, fake outer space, what are they gonna do now? They're gonna be outside of the universe. They're gonna have.
It's just gonna go crazier.
So this was a great place to end, I think.
Yeah. It was appropriate, and it was a good film. Like I said, it was fun and enjoyable to watch, so.
I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, I'm excited for you too. Okay, so I think that about wraps up today's episode.
So thank you all for listening to our review of Sing 2. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Classic TV, and to rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. So that's about it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.